I think it's recording.
I think it is recording.
Okay, I'm gonna edit that part out. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Delectable Perceptions with Ty. I'm here again. We're gonna talk about some filet gumbo with Eric Gaspard. Thank you for joining me. And go ahead and just introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Tynetta, for inviting me to this wonderful little gathering. My name is Eric Gaspard. I am the director for special education at one of the local Indianapolis charter schools. And we met when we were both teaching at Arsenal Tech about, what was that, like 6 or 7 years ago?
2016.
Yes, you and your husband were both teaching. You happened to be pregnant at the time, and Van was teaching biology and chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
and you were teaching world and U.S. histories, and we were all on the same floor. You and I were on the same floor. Van was on the
Yes.
bottom floor, but that is how
Yes.
we met, and then you guys just became my favorite little couple.
Oh, but thank you. And guess what? That was a whole emotional roller coaster for me, being a teacher at this school. Because I'm like,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
they threw me in the furnace.
Well, I hate to say it, but I think that's the indoctrination of most teachers. It's not a smooth glide. It's more like a bumpy ride.
It's like you're not gonna learn about these books. You're gonna learn by action.
Yeah, it is definitely on the what do they call that? Um, on the job training. You either
Ooh,
you make it or you break it. And so
ooh,
I
that is
was
an
fortunate.
underestimate.
Yeah.
Underestimate. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you again for joining me. And our comfort food is going to be filet gumbo. I actually never heard of the term filet, and I had to
Uh-huh.
look it up because I'm like, I know gumbo, and I don't eat it. I don't think I've had it one time.
Mhm.
But why did you choose gumbo or filet gumbo?
So my family is from New Orleans, and in New Orleans, everything pretty much is done around food, birth, death, everything in between. We eat and we eat good. Filet gumbo, like many other gumbos, and there's quite a wide variety of them. Is one of the dishes that my family traditionally serves with whenever we're doing any type of gathering, from family reunion to Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Somebody's coming home and hasn't been there for a while, are good excuses, for just making a pot of gumbo. And filet gumbo is just one of my favorites.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait. I don't know how it's served in Indianapolis. I'm kind of nervous to taste theirs, but I'm at this coming to New Orleans to get some authentic gumbo.
Oh yeah, that would be the place to make it happen.
Yeah, or do you know how to make it?
So I think I provided you with my mother's recipe, and
Yeah.
although I have never made it myself, I've
Mm,
seen it made enough times that I know that if push came to shove, I would be able to do it.
okay, I'm gonna try it. If you give me the recipe to anything, I'm pretty good with mimicking it. The only thing I'll probably take out because I don't eat shrimp or crab, but I
Hmm.
know you don't have to have every gumbo. Like I think you told me, like you just throw everything in there.
You can do
So,
a chicken and sausage gumbo. You
oh,
can
that
do a
sounds good.
vegetarian gumbo. I've seen people do Thai inspired gumbos. So a gumbo is really it's kind of one of those things that your family adopts and you make it your own. My sister
Mm.
makes a very spicy filet
Ooh.
gumbo. That's probably the Puerto Rican in our family, but that's a whole nother saga. We won't even go there. But
Ooh, that sounds
yeah,
Puerto Rican
so I
gumbo.
mean, but gumbo is as individual as the families are that create them.
Oh my goodness. Now I'm gonna look at this recipe you sent me, and I know it's authentic because you didn't send me a picture of a paper with a handwritten recipe. Okay.
That's my mother's handwriting. I
Oh
got
my,
that from my nephew who my mother gave it to. And so there was some hunting that had to be done in order to procure that particular recipe.
oh
I
my
will tell you that
goodness.
the biggest thing is paying attention to the roux. So the roux is the flour and the water are uh
And like the
mixture that
oil.
you stir and stir and stir, and at first it just looks like clay, and
Mm-hmm.
as you keep stirring, you stir it on a small or medium, lower medium heat, and you just wait for it to turn, and the darker it gets, the more rich the roux is going to be. And that roux gets added to everything and
Ooh.
incorporated. And that's where your flavors get married. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Now let me tell you, and I'm gonna do you a favor. If you don't want me to do it, let me know. I'm gonna type
Oh,
this whole thing out and I'm probably gonna print it out and make it look real nice and I'm gonna give it to you, okay?
okay.
Yes, because this is beautiful. And also when I saw this handwriting, it just reminded me of my grandmother's handwriting. Like
Well,
I feel like
my mother's
every
84. So,
woman like from the 40s, 50s, 30s, they got this signature cursive handwriting.
handwriting, right? It's like secret code. Nobody
Yes.
knows the lost art of handwriting. Film at 11. Your mother knows what I'm talking about, right? Yes, that's what exactly what it looks like. It's art. It's beautiful.
It looked and it's so neat, and I understood everything she was saying. Now in this gumbo, it seemed like everything is like basic ingredients. It's not something overly complicated.
No, yeah, that's right.
It's just the way you have to prepare. That's what make it special, though.
Yes. And I don't
'Cause
know what my mother does. I'm sure there's something that she does that she did not write on there because her gumbo is probably the best gumbo I have ever had. I have never been disappointed with a pot of my mother's gumbo ever.
Oh my goodness. Now in her gumbo, I'm just gonna go through all the ingredients for everybody listening, and I'm gonna put the recipe down below, like so you all can copy it. And the video you sent me, I listened to the guy talking. He just brought me back to all my friends from
Hmm.
Louisiana. He said, "Hey baby, I'm gonna make this gumbo for you all. Make sure you follow me."
Right? Yeah, that little kind of like uh the sing song of their language, the
Yes.
colloquialism of their dialect. It's beautiful. But I must remind you, everyone who is from New Orleans does not have a strong Cajun or Southern accent like that. Like no one in my family does.
They don't sound like that.
No, I mean
They
I have cousins who do, but like my immediate family, my father, no accent, mother, no accent.
oh,
Yeah,
they must have
yeah,
practiced
I
that.
have
They
no
had
accent.
to practice that because
I think they beat it into you when you're in private school because they did go to Catholic school, and as did I. And even though I didn't grow up in New Orleans, we went back every summer, and people just look at you like you're foreign because you don't have that. But by the time you leave there for the summer, you have been fully indoctrinated and you are practicing the colloquialism like a true
yes.
native. Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. So I found most of the benefits. Of some stuff some of the benefits I didn't find like the shrimp, like shrimp and the fish, that's probably got the same type of benefits. But
Mm-hmm.
like the sausages, what kind of sausage y'all use? I know it's like I know they got the
And
Adwing
and Louis
and the
sauce,
Louis, yeah.
sausage.
And then that one is
Mhm.
like a
With a small
combination.
yes, yes, and it's hard to find because it's usually made locally by a family who has a
Ooh.
butcher shop. And some of those butcher shops have fallen out of the family, and so they've been picked up by others. Sometimes the recipes have been preserved, and other times they have not. So, um, but andouille sausage can be really substituted with a smoked sausage. Any type of smoked sausage will do.
And what
Um,
about do y'all use boudin? Because I learned about boudin when I went to Wiley
so
in
boudin is
Texas.
Cajun.
Oh, okay.
Our family is Creole, so we don't.
Oh,
Yeah, so we don't do boudin. I do know what boudin is. I do know how to eat boudin. But traditionally we do not use boudin in our gumbo.
that's all right. The
Mhm.
first time I saw boudin, I said, "The hell is this?" I said,
Right. Yeah.
and my friends from Port Arthur, so Port Arthur, Texas, they their accent is real similar to that
Hmm.
Bayou. Cause all I know is she's like, "Baby, get that boudin, eat that rice." I said, "I don't want none of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want no rice in my sausage." Okay, I'm glad you just saw. I didn't even know there was a difference. The Cajun and Creole sausages.
Hmm.
Okay, and there's a whole lot of chicken in here. You got 10 or 15 chicken wings. Uh,
Yeah. So it depends on what size pot you're gonna make. If you're gonna make one to feed an army, which is basically what reports when we make gumbo or have any type of outing, then
mhm.
you're gonna need all that because it'll make those big, huge pots that look like they stand up about 24 inches tall
The
and they're
little
about
stock
24
pots.
inches wide. They look
That's
like they're gonna take up the entire stove.
That's
Yeah,
that cafeteria kitchen pot. That's them things look like.
yes. Okay. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Cafeteria kitchen pot. And then what you do, because not only are you cooking for the event, but
Mm-hmm.
invariably people will want to take a little some home with them. You know how people are
Yes.
from the South. Oh, I'm gonna just take me a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Before you know it, they got a trunk load of food.
You bring their containers. They bring their
Oh,
containers
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
And y'all got 5 to 6 onions. I actually love that part because I love me some onions. So that's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
onions.
Hmm.
Oh, that sounds good. Got the pepper, got some garlic, some parsley, and I didn't know parsley was in this. So,
Yes, yeah, but so like things like the parsley and the onions, when they cook down, even though you still know they're like translucent, or
mm,
they've cooked down so that they're incorporated and become really um the backbone of the flavor that's in your gumbo, because those things actually marry with the proteins and the other
mm.
spices, and there is nothing like a bowl of gumbo the day after it's been made.
Oh, them seasons been marinating in there.
Oh my goodness! Now you got my mouth watering. I'm gonna have to, like,
Find you
just
some
take a
gumbo now.
moment. Take a
Find
moment right here.
I don't know what's the best place in Indianapolis. We gonna come back to that. Where some place in this, or even the surrounding area, that actually has some good authentic gumbo. Because I want to know where it is.
I have personally, I haven't found one. I have been disappointed.
Okay,
Yes, unfortunately.
I
So
believe it.
when I need a fix for gumbo, I hop a plane and go see my mama or my sisters, and I
Come on.
get myself some real gumbo.
So Indianapolis hasn't been colonized.
Well, they're trying, and they're saying that they have,
Mm-mm,
but as a person from Louisiana,
it's not.
yeah, they leave me wanting.
They're like, what is this? Okay.
Yeah.
And what is filet? Because I even watched the video you sent me, and the guy
Hmm.
was like, yeah, put some filet in there to taste. And I'm like, what is filet? Is it a seasoning? What is it like? Is that the Creole seasoning?
So it's pulverized sassafras leaves.
That's all sassafras leaves.
Hmm.
So that is, I need to, when I type this out, I'm gonna put that in there. Sassafras leaves. So sassafras got a real distinct flavor to it, though.
Right, it does. Hmm.
I didn't know that. Okay, I'm glad I'm recording it so now I can come on back to this. Okay, and that's the school bell, ain't it?
Yes, it is the school bell. I know.
That's all right. It brought me.
Uh,
We're gonna pause. Okay. It's okay because guess what? I'm gonna edit that part out. Uh, so I found some good things in here, and I told you it's my job to find the benefits, and I'm gonna ask you some other questions about the gumbo and the history of it because um you mentioned that it comes from different islands and even parts of Africa and like different parts of the Caribbean, and I
right.
guess how they just collect all these ingredients and create a pot of this gumbo.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So and that's why, like, gumbo, it really takes on the flavors of the people who make them. So your gumbo from, say, Trinidad might be
Mm,
more spicy than the gumbo you see, because most of these gumbos are African in origin, right? The
mm.
people who eat them, the people who make them have their roots in Africa. There's even an okra gumbo, which is just amazing.
Okra.
uh, yes, and so you incorporate your okra into the gumbo, and it has to be prepared a certain way. My sister, my youngest sister, has the best recipe for that, and if you're interested in that, I can forward that to you as well. But
Come on.
oh yeah, yeah. So
I'm
it's
probably gonna
good.
be the only one eating. I'm not gonna lie, cause my family is special.
Hmm.
And my little 4-year-old, if she sees some slime, she be like, "Ew, mommy, what's that?"
Yeah, yeah. So there's a way to, so if you cook down the okra
Mm,
and get rid of some of uh
that
the
mucus, the
moisture,
slime.
that moisture cooks out, and it's not slimy like that.
Mm.
So yeah, so I mean, but there's a technique to it. But yeah, and so when you're making a pot of gumbo, gumbo is like a thing from the heart, but it's not an inexpensive dish to make either. With all those ingredients, and by the time you get to everything that you need of you, and the time that you spend putting it together, it can
Mm.
be, yeah, just one of the, like, oh, okay, well, here we go, it better be worth every penny.
I'm over here looking at it and I'm like, "Well, what can I do?" Because we don't eat pork. So I'll
Right.
probably use like turkey sausage or something. And I wonder if that'd
That's
be
perfect.
good still.
Yeah. My sister doesn't eat pork either. My sister directly underneath me, and she will use like turkey sausage instead, or chicken sausage.
Oh, that sounds fire. Okay, so you probably know some of these benefits, but I'm still gonna say it because if you eat this gumbo, like it's like almost you can cure some stuff because it's a lot of vitamins. It's like so many vitamins in here. Like even with the gizzards, I'm not a big gizzard person because I saw you got some chicken gizzards in here.
Hmm. And
But
that's
how do
perfectly fine.
how do they cook it? Do they chop it on up, saute it?
So I've seen it done different ways. I've seen it sauteed and cooked with, so it's always cooked with the other proteins, the other meats, but I've seen people chop it up. I've seen people leave it whole. My mother tends to chop it up and try and get more of the flavor out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I prefer it that way because sometimes, gizzard can be a little, it's one of those offals, the things that no one eats and everybody thinks they're going to throw away. But, poor people will pull everything in but the kitchen sink into
Come
their
on now.
gumbo, right?
Yes.
But it does add a bit of flavor and punch to your gumbo. And so if you um even if it's just that you put a few in, I would say go ahead and use it because you're going to get a whole. What I would do, I'd get a whole chicken, and then I would cut my chicken up, and then I would take my gizzards from my chicken, and I would chop them finely with everything else.
And
And so
nobody
now you're not
knows.
tasting it like that, right? And you're folding it into your other proteins, and boom, you're done.
Come on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't be knowing. Thank you. Because if I see a whole gizzard pulling this in my mouth, I'm be like, what?
Right. Right. You're like you're going to have that reflex, right? That like no,
They
this
should
isn't
have.
happening today.
Okay, so this whole soup is kind of like medicine almost. And when I was looking at all the benefits, like the chicken gizzard alone, like it got so many things that help with your heart
Hmm.
and like the functioning of your heart and all the iron. Like I know gizzard's got iron in it.
Yeah.
And Lord have mercy. My brain just got to wrap myself around it. But the onions, y'all got 5 or 6 onions in it. So that
Yes.
alone, all them onions, it help with infections. It boosts your immune system,
Hmm.
fight off toxins in your system.
The
So I'm like,
garlic.
the garlic, y'all got 2 heads. So when I saw 2 heads of garlic, is that two whole, like a
Yes.
bunch, like a
Yeah.
whole? Oh my,
Hmm.
that's a lot of garlic. I know it. I love me some garlic and some soups. Oh my God, that price. So the garlic alone, like anti-inflammatory, like if you guys, I'm just thinking like this can be medicine. Like people always give you chicken noodle soup, but what if you just got a bowl of gumbo? Then
Yeah.
that'll make you feel better.
Oh yeah. So it's something about like after you eat gumbo, you have like this kind of like wave of peace and calm that comes over you, like, oh yeah, I have arrived, right, like you've reached nirvana.
Oh my
That's how a good bowl of
God.
gumbo can make you feel.
No, my goodness. And I was just thinking that too because you got all the garlic, all the onions, the parsley. I didn't
Hmm.
realize this about parsley, but it is a diuretic, which I didn't know.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
if somebody's constipated, with all those folks out here listening, y'all always got this backup in your system because we don't want to be backed up. I'm gonna
No.
always talk about that. Put a little extra parsley in
Right,
there.
a little extra parsley in there. Put some parsley and lemon in your water and drink it all day
Oh,
long. Yeah.
I've never tried parsley and lemon.
It's
Come on now.
detox.
Come on.
Yeah.
And then I see someone here called stew meat. What is this stew meat?
So you can buy stew meat at any store. You just go to your butcher and say you want a pound of stew meat. And what it is, it's usually beef, and
Oh,
it's cut into little bitty pieces, and you just marinate it, fry it up, and it's really, you don't really fry it to be crisp. You fry it just to blanch it, not to blanch it, but to kind of like
put
just
some brown on it.
to brown it, yes, and then you pull it and you put the next thing in, pull it in the next thing, because you have to remember it's going to cook in the gumbo itself, when that's when it's going to be releasing all of its kind of wonderful goodness to you.
Is that stew meat the same as the stuff they put in beef stew?
Yes. Hello. Front row.
Come on now. My light bulb just went off.
Getting it though? See? Benefits of gumbo. Film at 11.
Come on. So we over here talking about this. I do want to ask you, like, what are some of your, I know you mentioned you all make the gumbo with family events, but
Mhm.
like what are some really good memories you can think that surround yourself? Like it could be your
Oh, wow.
parents, your friends. Like, can you tell us some memories around this gumbo, like when y'all would actually have it?
So gumbo is one of those dishes to when it's kind of like pushed out. You know how you have your family table, like the big family table, and then you have like the little bitty family table
Hmm.
where your little people are, and then your medium sized people are. So gumbo is one of those things, and the portions get bigger as you graduate, I should say as well, because it's an expensive dish to make.
Hmm.
You don't want to waste it, but you want to get your kids used to eating food that's part of your culture as well.
Hmm.
So you're at the little people table, you get a little portion, right? And if you want a little more, you get a little more. At the medium people table, um, middle school, high school people, you get a bigger portion. And then if you get to graduate to the big boy table and somebody's passed away and you get to graduate to their seat or something like that, or we made a bigger table for us this year, then you get more of the ingredients. You get to savor in the glory of the gumbo. And
Okay. I
and
didn't know anything about that. Just
yes, yes.
graduating.
So although it's not necessarily part of the process, it was like something that that in my head I just remember, little people, little portions, medium people, medium portions, big people, pot of glory.
Now, what happens if somebody dropped a bowl of gumbo or like they
I
was
have
being
never
real
seen that happen, but I'm sure the world would stop.
you see you never seen it happen.
No, I am sure the world would stop because in our family, um, the gumbo comes in a cauldron that this just becomes the centerpiece of the table, and you may get your rice brought to you in the bowl, and
Hmm.
then you pass your plate around, and then the person who's at the head of the table or someone else will put your gumbo in your bowl for you and give it back to you. Now, I don't know how that happens in every other house, but it is pretty traditional in our house. That's our household. That's how that happens.
I would love to see a video of this.
It's like a procession of food.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine. He said small, medium, and large people.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Um, so that is something to hear about that. But I wanted to know like any events that makes around like anybody like as like a memory like of your family, like
Wow.
any stories they would tell you about this gumbo because I know you mentioned the history behind it. Like, and if you're from New Orleans, then you know that slavery was big in Louisiana. They had all
Hmm.
the Native Americans, they had all the different islanders. Like,
Right.
what kind of things did your family tell you about, like your
So our family,
ancestors?
sure. So our family is pretty mixed. My On my mother's side, my grandfather's Puerto Rican, and her mom is African American. My father's side, my grandmother is French, and so my dad's father was Native American and African American. So we come to New Orleans as part of that melting pot, and
Hmm.
so we've already brought a lot of different cultures with us to the plate, but we also anytime that it just seems to be a food that kind of invokes memories from your ancestors and the people who came before you. Usually it's surrounded around food because so and so made the best crab cakes. You can't buy a crab cake or find one better than so and so. Shrimp etouffee. Don't touch anybody's shrimp etouffee until you have Maggie Mae's etouffee.
Mm-hmm.
Crawfish etouffee, or somebody decided that they were going to make fried chicken. Oh my goodness, nobody gets fried chicken done like so and so does it over here. And then everything, and the thing is that a lot of those dishes are on the table too.
All of that food is on one table.
It's usually a few tables, to be
Oh
honest with
my
you.
God.
It's like there's a wall of food because we have an extended family,
Hmm.
and so everyone. usually gathers, and it rotates, gathers at somebody's house for these events. And like my cousin always has a Christmas party, and we
Hmm.
all go to her Christmas party. And it is not uncommon to have 40 or 50 people at that Christmas party, all partaking in just, yeah, just a little bit of everything.
That's a
Um,
blessing. All that
yeah.
beautifulness.
And
Oh my
so we are
God.
really kind of like tied to our roots, and it seems that those roots are embedded in our foods.
Mm. And you just made me think about from your family helping and teaching you, and how you help. You actually taught me when I was a
Hmm.
teacher, and like I would come to you, I would be upset about something. Somebody said something to me in the classroom, and I just didn't
Yeah.
know how to handle it. And I'm like, what do I do?
I'm like, first of all, don't get upset. I said that's not something to get upset about. I said save those tears for something that matters, because this is not it.
Come on now, they're children. And I'm
Right?
thinking like I was a baby in the teaching
Yes, you
arena.
were a baby in a teaching world. It was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna mistake you for being one of them.
I was so
Right?
sweet. I was so sweet and so polite.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, you just so cute. And I couldn't. I had to stop.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And I know this ain't even on the topic of the gumbo, but you just made me think about my first year teaching. And I'm gonna just act like I walked into the class, and one of our lovely students said, Miss Muhammad, you should be a stripper. I'm like, what?
What? Right. Yeah. So, sometimes kids in high school will say things because, it's on their mind, and boom, there it is, like naked and raw. Sometimes they do it just to get a rise out of you. But sometimes they just do it out of pure naivete. They don't know, they don't
You don't even
understand the
know.
culture that they're supposed to be kind of like and involved in when they enter the classroom, and how it's different from being on the streets, or being hanging out with your homies.
Oh
And
my
that
God. No,
things you
Miss,
say to your friends should not be the same things that you say to adults in spaces like this. So
no,
it's
Eric.
all an education.
Eric, now this is in the self-contained class. Let me tell you how
Oh
this
yeah.
evolved. I went in the room and she said, Miss Bahabi, I should be that stripper at the special ed club. Look at me, I'm on a special ed pole. And it took me with all my might not to bust up laughing.
Right. Right.
I was like, why would you be in a special ed strip club? She's like, duh, this is special ed class. I was like, oh my
Oh
God.
my, right, right, yeah. Nothing escapes them, nothing.
And now I knew at that point in my life, this is a circus.
Yeah, yeah. So, you find out very quickly if teaching is for you or if it's not for you, because there's a certain mindset that you have to have, and there's also a certain kind of like, oh, okay, it's definitely a calling, but I will warn you, teachers, like priests, like coaches, you can absolve people of their sins, but they will crucify you at the first event that you have
Oh my
a
God.
mistake. So just understand that in the backdrop of your mind when you enter these spaces and you're interacting with these young minds, that you are
Oh my
still a
God.
professional, and regardless of what they say and what they do,
Come on now.
how they act, that you cannot lose your grounding, because you're the anchor in the
Come on.
classroom. You
I
know.
I have learned that it took me about 3 or 4 years. And the
Hmm.
best thing I could say when I would be really upset with a student is I say, you know what? I'm going to be professional right now and respond like this because I have to. And this is what I
Hmm.
get. I would just have to say that out loud. They're
Right.
like, you don't got to be professional to me. And I said, but
But
I
I do.
do. But I
But I
do.
do. Right. Yeah.
You-
But I
I'm
do.
not your friend in the classroom, and I ain't your friend outside the classroom.
Right. 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 So you don't want them feeling. I mean, you have to kind of like. I don't want to say you have to create boundaries.
You do.
Boundaries are there for a reason, and they're there to protect all of us. And
Absolutely.
we want our young people to grow up and be productive members of society, and we want to be good role models for them.
Hmm.
So if we become their friends, like their friends are their friends, you know what I mean? Then that lesson on how to make barriers and create barriers and still have a relationship with them is kind
Right.
of lost. And so when they go to have their own children, they don't have that example of this is a boundary that should not be breached. You know,
Mm.
instead they're like, oh yeah, everything's game, but it's not, right?
It's not. Oh my goodness. I'm learning that too because it's a college professor. They really almost are like high school students, but they just now more quiet and they paying for their
They're
education.
paying for education, so they're paying attention. Some of them are, some of them not so much.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of one of those things. Education is one of those things that people come back and revisit when they're ready
Hmm.
for it. Some people never are.
And
Some
that's
people are ready for it sooner than others. But whenever they're ready for it, we have to be ready for them.
yes. And this is gonna lead me to another question because I always, I love what you do, and like you got so much knowledge and background to these different aspects of your life. But I do want to ask you, this is the most random thing, and I
Okay.
asked my other guests, if you was to have a superpower, like you could think of any superpower in the whole wide world, what superpower would that be and why?
Wow.
I didn't tell you this ahead of time.
Okay. So I think my superpower would be to um, be able to kind of bestow knowledge and wisdom, like infuse knowledge and wisdom into people. Like, touch, there you go. That's what you need today.
Oh
To kind of fill that gap of what they need that day to keep the world peaceful.
yeah. Oh, save you the time and energy.
Well, I think with knowledge must come wisdom. However, they don't always travel in a package.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's how sometimes we get people who are very smart who abuse their knowledge and use it as a weapon. And we get people who don't know how to align their knowledge to make wise choices. But the
Oh.
two need to kind of come together and travel the same path, because ideally with that knowledge comes responsibility, and you can't be responsible for something if you don't have the wisdom to know how to wield that sword.
A lot of people act off of ignorance, and I see that a lot.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh no, 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 baby, don't do
Right.
that. Don't do
Right.
that.
Don't do that. Don't do
Don't,
that. Don't go
oh,
there.
don't do
Right.
that. And I am learning that now, working in this arena because I learned that even as a high school teacher, I could teach them certain things. But now I'm working in college and I teach them certain lessons, and the students would ask questions, and I'd be like, "Oh, they didn't learn this, so now I gotta teach it to them."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You find the
Man,
gaps, and now they're more willing to like express I don't know,
mm-hmm.
because they realize that there's no shame in not knowing. The only shame
Right,
is in not asking.
man, and I like that. I'm gonna share this experience that happened to me last week. I was teaching about it's a show on Netflix called a Man. I think it's called AMEND, and Will Smith is like a moderator.
Hmm.
And in the show they was just going over like the beginning history of when they brought Africans to America. And one of my students said, well, why didn't the slaves just get a sword and kill the master? And I was like,
Wow. Yeah.
that's a good question. I
Hmm.
had to tell him, I said, well, from birth they are taught, they are born to be a slave, they're born to do that.
Right.
So they're never going to attack their master. I said the master can whip them, beat them. And I said, if you think about it, yes, there are like 15 slaves to one white person. They could have killed them, but I said slavery would have ended the first year.
But if you think about history,
Hmm.
this is what happens that's different from other enslavements. So when Europeans traveled to Latin America, they tried to enslave the indigenous people there, but those indigenous people ran away, right? Because
Hmm.
they knew the land better than the people who wanted to enslave them. When slavery became an institution and they started to capture and then transport slaves across the Atlantic, slaves had no place to run,
They don't know where they at.
right? I don't know this land. I don't know these people. I don't know who I can trust, and I have no sense of community, right? So
Right.
there's no so all of those things that would have been there to help them say, I'm going to revolt. And revolts did happen. If you think about Amistad, and you
Right.
think about that revolt, um, but those are isolated incidents.
Right.
And
And
then
they
we had uprisings here in what were the colonies before the United States,
hmm
but those were always squashed because while they may have had weapons
right.
like swords or some type of sharp tool to or
Yeah.
blunt tool to subdue their or overtake their masters, the larger community came together to subdue them still again with guns and military
hmm
might, right? So answering that question about why these things didn't happen,
Right.
it's not that they didn't happen, they weren't successful,
Nope. And they
right?
made sure they put the fear in those slaves. They said, if any one of you try to do this again, this
Well,
is what's going
what would they do? If you ran away, they would chop off your foot,
to. Right.
right? If you spoke out and you were boisterous,
They cut your tongue off.
well, either that or they would what? They would cage your mouth,
Yes, that's right. They did that as well.
right? And so these really inhumane actions were prevalent in these spaces and allowed to occur because, like the Japanese did in World War II, when they took prisoners of war and they treated them so poorly, the same mindset was in play, and
hmm
that is that they didn't look at them as human, and so to treat them as less than human became very easy for them to do.
Yeah.
And if you treat your slave like you treat your field mule, and no one's saying anything,
It's
all of a
normal.
sudden you have this kind of desensitized emotional detachment from what you're doing, right? You don't look at it as bad because in the same space, a lot of these people who were cruel to slaves and people that they enslaved and anyone who was really not European and white and had money and had land,
Right.
they would they would treat you any kind of way they wanted to, and the law was on their side, right?
Right. It's built for them. It's built for them.
So the people who are in charge are the ones who are making the laws and the ones who are also enforcing the laws.
Mm. And that's that I'm learning. And guess what I'm gonna actually do is be a guest speaker in my class. Thank you, Mr. G.
Well, there you go. There
There
you
you
go.
go. That's the introduction to. Oh my
You
goodness!
know I'm available anytime.
Come on now. I'm gonna send you my schedule. Okay, let me. This is the last. This is for real the last thing because, um, I haven't asked anybody else this one, but if you were a type of food, what type of food would you be? And I'm gonna answer it too. What type of food would you be if you was to say like, oh, I'm this type of food?
Um, so I'm gonna put myself in a category
Do
of
it.
savory and spicy
Oh,
because I can be a bit much and I
yes.
can be a bit spicy from time to time. And I figure you knew before you tasted me what you were going to get. And so if you bit down and you ate it, I hope you enjoyed it. But if you didn't, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Come on now. Oh my goodness. Come on. You know what? I don't know what this category fits in, but I'm gonna call myself I don't know if it's a jawbreaker or it's like one of those candies. It's like them old candies, like you keep
Oh,
sucking on it.
yes.
The
Uh-huh.
colors keeps changing.
Yes, those are jawbreakers all day
Yes.
long.
So a jawbreaker, like it tastes so good, sweet. Like I'm a sweet person, but like if you like bite too hard on me, like you're gonna break
Yeah,
your teeth.
teeth.
Like you're gonna be
Right.
hurt.
Yeah.
And
Unassuming,
I'm
like
sweet. I'm really, really sweet in real life. But like,
but
please
it's
don't.
so sweet. And then she broke my tooth though, right?
Like
Like don't
I
like
hurt
keep you in the
feelings a
same
little bit.
space.
I
Yeah.
will hurt feelings, and I'm still sweet. I have said that multiple times.
I
Like,
have seen you do it with a smile on your
what a
face.
smile. They be like, Miss Muhammad, why am I failing? And I'm smiling because you don't come to class, you don't do nothing, and I'm still smiling.
Right, right.
You don't do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't grade you if I don't get nothing from you.
Right. Well, and that's what I tell them. I said, I will not give you a grade. You will earn the grade and I will record it.
Come on now.
Right.
That's
But
all.
like I used to tell people when I worked in retail as a general manager, I said, if I hire you, I will not fire you. You will fire yourself and I will do the paperwork.
That's all you can do. It's, and I'm really good at being myself. I have learned to be myself and stop trying to act like
Mm-mm.
somebody else or
You
like
show up
fit.
authentic, and you know what? You never have a day where you like can't remember what you did or why you did it or who you were that day. I don't have those issues.
I know who I am,
Hmm.
and I know how I respond to things. So
And there's a level of comfort in that.
it is, and
You know, you just go, oh yeah, no, that's not me,
yes,
right?
and I like how my husband, like, if I describe a conversation that I had, he said, Tanetta, I can literally picture when you say yes. And I can, he said, I can always picture when you say that.
Right.
Because I get excited very easily when especially if I have a passion in it. But oh my God, Eric, I wanna be ease it out of our podcast. I would say thank you so much for joining me on my delectable perception.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. And I'm going to tell my guests, and this is what I always try to tell people, always be yourself and be the best version of yourself. And thank you for listening to Delectable Perception. Have a good day, everybody.